It was a decade and a month ago that the musical legend David Bowie exited our dimension. He came, he met us, he blew our minds, and then returned to the starry sky above, and the world was never the same again. No, seriously, look at what's unfolded since then, and tell me he wasn't the fabric holding everything together, but I digress. I first consciously became aware of Bowie through the 1986 fantasy classic Labyrinth, which celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. Directed by Jim Henson, written by Python member Terry Jones, and executive produced by George Lucas. What a mad combo, and like many, I love this film to bits. But before I dive into it, I'd like to quickly divulge how I initially stumbled upon it. One day, as a wee boy, I was mindlessly flicking through the family's DVD collection, having a little look, when I come across this movie titled Labyrinth. I'd never heard of it, but for whatever reason, the front cover struck me, and it really had me curious. So, I grabbed it, headed up to my room, stuck in my PlayStation 2, and gave it a watch. And let me tell you, it sure made an impression. It was the most wonderfully weird and surreal, yet fascinating thing that I can recall. I hadn't seen anything like it before. In hindsight, it was ultimately my gateway to the 80s fantasy scene. It was the first of its kind that I ever saw. And wow, what an introduction, eh? And obviously, it stayed with me ever since, with my fondness only growing and growing. Jennifer Connelly is here in one of her first roles as Sarah. Early on, sad to say, she's a little irritable. Firstly, her line delivery is awkward. Is it because Henson is so used to directing puppeteers as opposed to real life actors? Or was George Lucas a ghost director? But worse, she is such a whiner, non-stop complaining, yelling at her dad and stepmom, then aiming her heat towards Toby, who somehow nicked her teddy bear Lancelot, but he's also crying non-stop, and she keeps shouting and he keeps crying, and oh my god, shut up, just shut up. The first 10 minutes are actively painful, but thankfully, that doesn't last too long, and she becomes, well, not an amazing character per se, but a decent, tolerable one. A far cry from later award-winning Connelly performances, let's just say that. But Sarah does grow and develop, and you do care for her enough, so I'll give her that. Funny looking back that Sarah is obsessive with this labyrinth story within the story, which really, apart from the finale and a couple of teases before her adventure, doesn't really play much into it at all. There's very little in the way of references or stuff like that, so it's borderline pointless. Also, she's conspicuously a cosplayer before that became mainstream, so the girl was ahead of her time. Then there's David Bowie as Jareth the Goblin King, who gets a badass introduction by the way. He bursts through the window, the wind gusting, his silhouette coming into frame, stood there majestically in his magnificent outfit, complete with fabulous haircut, and him cradling his balls. Don't take that the wrong way, thank you. The guy has a serious presence in how he carries himself and that oh so sexy deep voice of his. Oh my. He comes equipped with a multitude of flashy costumes throughout. Ellis Flight deserves props for that specifically. And he has plenty of memorable lines. What's said is said. Nothing, tra-la-la. I wonder what your basis for comparison is. And that big zinger of his, the Prince of the Land of Stench. But I know it ties into the tale in that, but he is defeated in such an anticlimactic fashion. Yeah, a little weak, but otherwise an entertaining performance that naturally steals the show. There's Hoggle, who we meet while he's taking a piss. Ah, nothing like the magic of cinema, brought to us from the creator of Sesame Street. But I like Hoggle, such a cheeky jackass, but he does warm up to Sarah, and they make for a good team. Even if she's awfully quick to forgive him for the whole Peach fiasco, but whatever. The bodysuit is well made, and I enjoy Brian Henson's craggy voice work. Ludo is a big lovable lug that I just want to hug, and Sir Didymus is amusing. I know a few folk who aren't so keen on him, which is fair enough, I can see where they're coming from. But I like him myself, and a big salute to the real hero, his trusty steed, Ambrosius. What a good boy. I like the variety of goblins and their different designs. Oh, speaking of which, they give us one of the all-time great out-of-context scenes for blind first-time viewers. When Sarah is doing story time with Toby, then just abruptly cuts to this group of goblins. Shh, listen. Like, what the hell? We get a hefty amount of memorable and impressively creative creatures that Sarah bumps into along the way. The plant things with the multiple eyes, that adorable little worm. Me? Nah, I'm just a worm. The little guys that live under the path and troll Sarah, the doormen, the fondling helping hands, the faces on the wall, the decrepit old man and the bird hat, who are uncomfortably excited about the sight of a young girl. Ew. The spearmen with the wee bitey things on the spears, the door knockers, and that bitchy old wretch. I'm such a big fan of the production design in this film. It's one of the key elements that I always look forward to on revisits. Like the wide shot of the labyrinth itself at the beginning, obviously a matte painting, but a very nice one. And you get those moments of the high shots looking down on the maze. There's Sarah looking and running down the seemingly endless pathway. The effect is probably so simply done, but it's so convincing. There's Hoggle creating the door, which swaps between a closet and the way out. How did they do that? There's the Bog of Eternal Stench, complete with funny farts and Hall, teehee. And the junkyard of forgotten memories, capping off with a fake room falling around her. A neat, nightmarish idea, even though there is no way it can fool us into thinking the movie's just gonna end there. A clever fake out this ain't. There's the giant gate robot, the battle in the Goblin City is a total blast, and finally, the MC Escher inspired room, which to this day still looks jaw-droppingly unbelievable. What I like is how the film places you in the shoes of Sarah, and has you inquisitive and wondering what you have to do to figure out the solutions, and it forces you to think outside the box. I always appreciate something that can provide some fun brain teasers, but also it has you feeling her frustrations when she's stuck in a jam or takes a wrong turn. Although sometimes she makes some dumb, bone-headed decisions that have you putting palm to face quite often. And tying back into the creatures and the production design, the practical effects throughout are a marvel. The primitive computer effects though, not so much. Like that CGI owl in the opening credits, or the really shabby chroma key in. Hold that thought. This is an example of a snappily paced movie, which comes at just over the 90-minute mark. There's zero wasted motions, there's minimal exposition or explanation. It hits you with only the essential basics. Boom boom boom, right off you go. The musical score by Trevor Jones is top-notch excellence all the way through. And lastly, the songs provided by Mr. Bowie. The opening song is a solid warm-up. Dance Magic Dance, goes without saying, is an infectious banger. And I love how it's sparked out of essentially pure boredom. There's so little lead in, Jareth just jumps straight into it, going ahead, flaunting his glorious bulge, and throwing Toby in the air towards the end, who's blatantly a lightweight puppet if you look close enough. Just watching David Bowie carrying and dancing with it always cracks me up. Chilly Down featuring the Fire Gang. Oh lord, this is the definitive low point of the picture. The song's annoying, the gang are annoying, the chroma key is quite frankly dreadful, and the entire thing is a pointless affair. A little fact by the way, Danny John Jules, aka Cat from Red Dwarf, does the voices for a couple of them. The more you know. As the World Falls Down is a very 80s love ballad, and I like how it has a mixed, relaxing and trippy vibe to it. Very much like a drug trip, which I guess is part of the point with the peach and that, and the visuals of the masked ball match up with that sensation. Within You is a smashing tune that is criminally short, and Underground is a sweet upbeat piece to send us off. And that's Labyrinth. Does it have problems? Oh absolutely. There are many cracks and seams, there are multiple faults, but for everything that doesn't hold up well, there's so much more that does. At the time it got a mixed reception from critics and was a box office disappointment. It's funny how we perceive the 80s to be the peak of fantasy films and their popularity, but ironically, most were never financially successful. Supposedly, the weak performance deeply hurt Jim Henson. A sad shame really, especially considering he never lived to see the beloved cult following that was achieved in the successive decades. As for me, I still enjoy it, warts and all. I can never get sick of it. Labyrinth is an admittedly flawed, yet undeniably magic experience. I'm Jason, and this is Small Movie World, watching, talking and loving films.